So this is our second Coffee Connect. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about self-management. If you were with us before, this beginning part is kind of just a quick review, but we wanted to, because we know that not everyone's going to be able to be on all of them, we want to make sure we do kind of always touch on this initial content so that everybody is getting the same things. So this is us. I'm going to let the other girls introduce themselves, but I am Emily Arkfeld. I serve Region 5 on here, so you can see it's kind of the panhandle of Nebraska, ESUs 13, 15, and 16, and I'm coming into this role with my background in school social work. So Mackenzie, if you want to go.
Yes, I'm Mackenzie Rydell. I serve Regions 1 and 2, so that's ESUs 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, along with Lincoln Public Schools and Omaha Public Schools. And my background is in school psychology.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jill Gunther. I am the third SEBL Specialist, and I serve Regions 3 and 4, which is ESUs 1, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, and 17. My background is both a speech language pathologist and then in special education leadership. So good morning, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay, so we have, we know in social emotional behavioral learning, SEL, all of that, that some of the Castle 3 signature practices are the welcoming inclusion activity. I always forget, I always like space on the middle one, but it's like those engagement strategies. Is that, yeah, okay, thanks guys. And then optimistic closure. So we always like to start our time together with the welcoming inclusion activity, just kind of get something fun or to kind of see what people are coming in with and get people ready to kind of talk about some things. So we've got the QR code up here. We've got the link if you have your slides open. And so I'm going to leave that up for a second to allow people to get into that. And then we'll have Mackenzie skip over to the Jamboard to share that with us so that people can see what's going on there. And so it's just today's, I think, is just talking about on the first page, putting what helps you focus, and on the next page, what things distract you from focusing. And if you have not ever done a Jamboard before, it's similar to the Padlets. You can click on like the little stickies right there on the left-hand side, and then put in your content on there, and it will save automatically. If you have questions or you need help, you can drop it in the chat, or please feel free to unmute. I can't see everybody that's on, so usually I can kind of have an idea of like if someone looks confused, but I don't see that today. So if you need some help, please let us know. Lots of quiet environments. The QR code back up. Can you drop the link to the Jamboard in the chat really quick, Mackenzie? That might just be easier. Thank you. A goal and a purpose, that is always very helpful to have something we know we're working towards. Clean desk, please don't come to my house. Even at home, my desk is a mess. My poor husband. Coffee, yes, can't go wrong. Morning coffee. Oh, I've got the grounding techniques on there, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a fantastic way to kind of clear your mind and get started. Okay, you want to flip over and see if we've got some on the distractions. You guys can keep putting them on the focus, but if you click like Mackenzie did up there, that arrow, we can move on to the ones that talk about what are things that distract you and prevent you from focusing. My dog. And I'm interested to know if that is my dog at home or if like it's a therapy dog that comes to school with you that ends up being distracting. Emails popping up, notifications on my phone and watch. I will say I love my Apple Watch. It has helped me like remember to do so many things, but dog at home, it is definitely distracting. And it is, I know. So my brother-in-law teaches in a high school, and he would talk about when they first came out that the kids are just constantly doing this in the class, and just such a distraction that we don't necessarily think about or expect. Trauma, past and current, kind of that just ongoing chronic underlying stress and distraction. These are great. Thank you all. Hard to focus when I'm rushed. And that's part of like that, you know, the grounding techniques that were on the other one, and the self-management stuff of being able to recognize how you're feeling and put some things into place so that you can kind of clear that, slow your body down and focus. These are great. You guys can keep putting them in there. You have access to the Jamboard forever, so you can go back and see, especially if there are things of like, gosh, my usual go-tos for focusing are not working. What are other people doing? You have that kind of all in one place for you. Thank you all for engaging in that with us. Again, if this is your second time, you know this, we've got our Padlet link where we are dumping all of our resources from all of our Coffee Connects onto that for you guys, so you have access to that. And really, this is not just if you have friends or colleagues that you're like, hey, I know you haven't been able to make this, but this would be great for you. Please feel free to send it to them. We want to share these resources far and wide. This is not like a private just for us stuff. We know that we learn best from not reinventing the wheel and doing what other people do. And so this is open for everybody. So the Padlet links will always, the categories will always be the same. And then under SEBL resources, I think we are linking. So like on today's Padlet, we have moved the self-awareness classroom activities and practices and additional resources onto its own Padlet, and then linked that Padlet onto this original Padlet. So it won't be like everything and overwhelming. We're trying to keep it as organized as possible so that it is useful for you guys and not just a mess that you don't even want to scroll through. So that Padlet will always be accessible. We'll have one for each time, and we'll kind of keep that information going. And then you can add these things I hope to gain any questions. That just keeps us making sure we know that we are doing what you guys need. And if you have additional resources that we don't have on there that you love or you have found, please, please, please add those for everybody else. Okay, so with continuous improvement, we are always also trying to improve our content and what we're putting out there for all of you. And so we kind of redid our definition. So if you're on with us a month ago, this probably looks a little bit different. It might be different again in the month. We're not sure, but we just want to make sure that it is keeping up with best practices and really saying what we want it to say. So SEBL, the systematic process for fostering social emotional skills among us students and adults. We really want that adult piece in there because we think that if we can't do it, we can't model it and teach it to others. And when we do that, then we create those safe and supportive environments where we can have positive behavioral outcomes and expectations for each person and for all. This is just another way to say that we need these competencies. We need these at the foundation to be able to have those expectations. And we talked in the last month a little bit more about, we hear SEL, and here in Nebraska, we've added the B. So just talking about that again, that it's an interesting political climate right now, and there are states who can use SEL and states who can't, and they're calling it all kinds of different things. And what our conversations have really been around is that it doesn't matter what it's called, as long as we are teaching these skills to our students, because we know that it's best practice for them to be able to reach these positive outcomes and be these great little humans that we want them to be. So here in Nebraska and Nebraska NeMTSS, we have added the B because we believe that they are intertwined and that you can't have one without the other. And then again, just talking kind of along those same lines, that a lot of times in all kinds of workings. We work in silos, and one person's doing this and one organization is doing this and one company is doing this. And in the schools that happens, you've got your academic MTSS team and your behavior MTSS team. And we really want to bring all of those things together and say, like, how do we look at all of these in one for our students and make sure we are providing the best possible environment and skills and learning and academics for all of our students. So bringing those all those things together and not doing them in silos. And then we found this, we adapted this from the social emotional teacher online. She's great. She's got a lot of good content. She is linked in the Padlet. And so we kind of looked at this and how we wanted to make this fit what we are talking about for social emotional learning. So we have our CASEL competencies that we adopted. Again, it's not, I think ASCD does a little bit differently. Different organizations and companies and SEL programming does it differently, but really the skills stay the same. And so Nebraska MTSS has it, and Nebraska and NDE has adopted the CASEL competencies, but then we kind of broke this out a little bit further. So like what question is that? And then what kinds of skills are we expecting students to be able, adults and students to be able to do to meet those kinds of competencies, those overarching constructs of SEBL. And then on this, so today we're talking about self-management. Again, it doesn't matter who it comes from. So we kind of combine the greater good in education and the CASEL definition here because it fit, to make it fit what we wanted to say, but it's the ability, you guys can read, but to navigate and shift one's thoughts, motions, and behaviors across all the different situations. So we want students to not to just be able to do that in your classroom. They need to then be able to generalize that and take it to the school as a whole and out into the community and out into their jobs and back to their families in order to make these decisions and reach goals that benefit oneself and others. So it's about kind of the collective good as well. And this is a closer shot of just that self-management visual that we have. And so we think that the skills are regulating emotions, confronting biases, plan and organize, and build motivation and set goals. And then we have some break-off skills from that as well. So we're kind of going to go through some resources for each of those big bubbles today. And that's all I've got. So I'm going to hand it off.
All right, so like Emily said, we're first going to talk a little bit about just self-management in the classroom. So as you can see here, so using that self-motivation, using that self-discipline to maximize that goal setting, finding ways to work in a way that meet your needs. It's really about how our thoughts, our actions, and our feelings are interconnected. And as you can see, we have kind of a piece of the cognitive behavioral triangle, just kind of a diagram to show how emotions and feelings and thoughts and behaviors and actions are all interconnected and how one kind of plays off the next. So it's an important piece to remember when we're talking about self-management. Self-management in the classroom is also about that stress management and being able to identify and know about coping strategies that work for various students when they're feeling upset or when they're feeling frustrated. Being able to clearly express feelings along with wants and needs, and then setting those healthy boundaries and acknowledging mistakes and standing up for others. So we're going to go into just a few different activities that have to do with some of those pieces. And these are takeaways for you guys. Take them back, use them in your classroom, share them with colleagues. So the first one is a goal setting one. And so we have a nice little chart there, just as a reminder of how important it is to talk through that goal setting, talking about the difference between short-term goals and long-term goals, what the motivation is to complete those goals. And we have two links shared in there with you guys as well that just provide some different reflection questions as you're filling out those long and short-term goals. And going through where talking through with students, identifying the goal, making a plan to complete that goal, being able to come up with problems that might occur, and then just reflections. So two nice just links in there to work on some goal setting. The WHOOP activity, which is also fun to say, especially at 7:45 in the morning, right? Everybody just give a little whoop. So there is a WHOOP website that we've linked, and then WHOOP activity. And so what it stands for is wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. If you guys are not familiar with it, but it's just a great little activity to really work on that motivation and goal setting. And so with the first one, students would identify a wish that they have, something that's important to them, something that they want to accomplish or something they want to achieve. So identifying that, then looking at the outcome. So kind of in the perfect world, if my wish were to come true, what would that look like? Obstacles. So just identifying some things that could come up that might get in the way of that wish coming true or that goal being met. And then plan. So kind of a plan B. So what's going to happen? Thinking about that if then. If an obstacle comes in the way, what is kind of going to be my plan to overcome that so that I can still accomplish that wish? So just kind of a fun activity that goes along with goal setting as well. Planning and organizing is another piece of self-management. So we have a few pictures there that really just kind of represent setting those expectations, having those routines and those rituals, but also just including visuals or checklists, things like that, helping students to really try to gain that independence. And so that first one is an elementary or a preschool example where it's just the steps of when they come in the morning, what they need to do. So providing those, teaching those routines and those expectations for them. The other one is really just a checklist. So something that could be on the board, something that could be on individual desks for maybe upper elementary or even in secondary. So again, when they come into the classroom, just kind of knowing those steps that they need to organize themselves and kind of plan and get ready for the day so that they're ready to learn whatever is going on in the classroom that day. These are some great just visuals, good reminders that we kind of put together, kind of a little collage for you guys as some reminders for planning and organizing and helping students really try to kind of achieve those things. And so what a clean desk looks like. And so when we tell students, hey, let's, organize or let's clean our desk, but giving them that visual of really what does this look like as an example. So, the name tag is left alone. There's no trash in there. All papers are in a folder or in a notebook. So really just kind of providing those guidelines for what we're saying. Different kind of to-do or checklists. So lots of different examples of those that can help students really just kind of organize what's going on throughout their day. And we as adults, I know some have just different things that they like to use, things that they like to do to just kind of organize their days. So lots of different apps using phone calendar or reminder are different ones as well, or just paper pencil planners. We have some like at a glance, so 5 days a week, 7 days a week, just to kind of organize that. Using those color-coded folders and notebooks and having a different color for each class, just helping to organize that way. And then the one in the middle there is just some like big labels. It has the actual, I don't know if you guys can see it very well on there or not, but it has the actual student schedule on there typed out. And that was something I used to use with students, put that in their planner. Just kind of saves them a few steps of not having to write out their class schedule each day. All their classes are right there, and then they can just put whatever they did in that class or whatever their homework is on there. So anytime that we can help teach them some of those different strategies to help with that planning and organization. All right, moving on to giving you guys some activities that have to do with confronting bias. This one is called the crumpled paper activity. And this activity is where students maybe write on a piece of paper just an incorrect assumption, maybe that they had about a person, maybe that they had about a culture, or their feelings in that moment in time. Then they're crumpling up that paper with those feelings that they had, throwing it, and then they can go and retrieve it, bring it back out, uncrumple it, color in with different colors each of the lines on that crumpled paper, and then just having just kind of some reflection. So talking about what that represents, talking about how we all make mistakes and that's okay, just kind of what we're learning from those mistakes. Some different reflection questions that we had come up with to kind of go along with this activity, just really thinking about what they learn when they make a mistake, really thinking about how it makes them feel, thinking about, oh gosh, have you discovered something new from making the mistake? How do you think others see you when you make a mistake? So we had written down just a couple. You could come up with a variety of different reflection questions to really talk about those feelings, really talk about mistakes and assumptions and kind of how all of that can make different people feel. How to start a call-in conversation. So we provided you guys just a few kind of sentence starters, divided them up by younger ages, older ages, to kind of just starting that call-in conversation. We also have a link in there, which is a great resource about what call-in versus call-out is, why a call-in classroom is important. I think there's some more just kind of sentence starters or conversation starters on there as well. But for younger ages, so what you said could hurt someone's feelings because, but really giving them that language and then, having those conversations in the classroom in that safe place and really talking about how to do those things. For the older ages, do you think you would say that if someone from that group was with us in the room? In this class, we hold each other accountable, so we need to talk about why that joke isn't funny. So just some things to just kind of get them started when we're having those call-in conversations. That link also just has some good reflection questions, but helping us to how to guide those conversations in the classroom, how to practice calling in. So more of what you see on the screen. And again, just kind of why it's important. All right, moving to regulate emotions. So another big piece of self-management. And again, we wanted to give you guys some resources, just some kind of think abouts. You might use some of these in your classroom. We've linked a few of these in the Padlet as well, but just a scale. So being able to identify like what their emotions are, what that looks like for them. So here you can see we have some different like superheroes on there, but using whatever their preferred interests are, you can change up those pictures. And also changing up what it looks like for that particular individual. This is also, some things that you could hang in your classroom as well, and just kind of have some generic 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as well to help them with those regulating of emotions. The emotion thermometer, so filling out how you feel and then what are you doing? So again, what that looks like for you, what you're going to do when you're at that 5, to kind of just help regulate yourself to bring you back down to that 0 or that 1. Break passes. We have like a chill out pass. So being able to use that when students need to take a break, whether that's going for a quick walk or going and grabbing a drink of water, whatever that might be. And then things I can do when I'm upset, we've also linked that one in. Again, you could change the particular emotion. You could add in a picture of the student, but then helping them to identify. This is one I like to use with students, helping them just identify what are some things that they can do to help regulate their emotions. Mindfulness strategies. So again, some different ways for regulating emotions. So under strategies, we have a handout linked in there with some great things to go along with breathing, grounding, imagery, and then self-talk. And then here we just have some visual reminders of some different tools for adults and for students. So square breathing is a great one. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 things that you see, 4 things that you feel, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. The hidden pictures up there in the corner. So things like I Spy, things like hidden pictures, trivia, Mad Libs, all of those are great resources for really distracting those negative thoughts so that it can regulate the brain so that we can then, or the body can then regulate. And so those are great tools for students, or again, adults as well. And then in the bottom right-hand corner there, that was just the positive affirmation. So things like, this is tough, but so am I.
So as Emily mentioned earlier, we really think it's important to focus on the adults as well within social, emotional, and behavior learning. And when we think of self-management in the classroom for educators, we think of educators being able to manage their time and responsibilities, which could mean they're having a daily routine or a schedule. They're able to create that works for them in their class. It can look different for other people. Being able to break down big tasks and deadlines into smaller steps, and then using and modeling their self-management skills to regulate themselves when they're having strong emotions in the classroom. So when things are a little bit on edge or something might happen, it's really important for the adult to practice those skills, not only for themselves, but also to model it for them, for their students, to show them that like, I have big emotions too, and this is what I do to help me. And sometimes it can be a little awkward to take a step back and say, all right, today, right now, we're going to do a minute of mindfulness. And it can seem a little awkward, but it does help the adult if they are feeling dysregulated. And then it also can help the students too. This self-management for educators also means being able to set goals and adapt them and be flexible as things change. And then acknowledging how their experiences and their identities can impact how they interact with students, how they might react to or support students differently based on the experiences they've been through in their lives. Another thing with self-management that has been talked about a lot is self-care and taking care of yourselves. And we really, we know that it can be a triggering topic for some, but we really want to emphasize that it is so important, especially now, for educators to sustain themselves and to take that time for themselves. And we wanted to break apart the difference between self-maintenance and self-care. So a lot of times people say self-care, you need a self-care, and people think of getting their nails done and taking a bubble bath. And while those things can be important, when we think of self-maintenance, those are those things that we need to do to survive. So the basic necessities that you do, having a good sleep schedule and being able to manage your stress and eating healthy and exercising, those are the things that you do every day just for survival. But then when we talk about self-care, we want to think about it from the angle of what are you doing now that's going to not only sustain yourself to make it to the next day, but create an environment where you can thrive throughout your time alive. That sounds kind of weird, but like, how can you create that environment to thrive in the coming days and years? And so you're not reaching empty every Friday or at the end of every school year. How are you fulfilling yourself throughout to flourish? And so when we think of self-care, we think of setting healthy boundaries and being vulnerable and helping create those deep relationships and standing up for yourself and advocating for yourself and your needs. And so self-care isn't just getting your nails done and sleeping in on Saturdays. It's setting up your everyday life in a way that's intentional to help you sustain yourself throughout the years. We wanted to do an activity with the annotate function on Zoom. And so we know people are doing things and different things work for different people. So we wanted you to annotate the screen. You can click the little pen button and do a text box and type in, or you could write in if you're feeling good about your writing skills on a mouse pad, but do something that you do to take care of yourself, and then something that your school district or building is implementing to support their adults in caring for themselves. Looks like we have some people that do yoga, they read, going to the gym, working out, doing a book club, journaling, reading, the ruler approach for their districts and buildings.
And are there things, if you are not in an admin role, are there things that your administrators are doing for you in your building? Like, are they, and Mackenzie might have said this and I was trying to look at the annotate stuff, but like, are they, bringing in coffee for you, a coffee cart, or things just to show you that appreciation and providing some of those self-care times?
Phone calls with your friend. I definitely use that one a lot. We want to make sure we still have some time for discussion, so I'm going to move on. So we linked this last time, but this is a self-assessment link that Castle has provided. It breaks it down by each competency. If you or somebody you work with that you think they might benefit from doing some additional reflection on different competency areas and how they can use that to help themselves be a better educator or a better person and better able to sustain themselves, you're more than welcome to use that. There's also different self-assessments from different organizations. So we linked a few other ones in the Padlet. Self-management at home, we can foster some of those skills by playing games with our kids, by teaching them to listen and be respectful through playing games together. There's some examples that are really good for some younger kids, but even doing games and learning, winning and losing and how to deal with that can be a good lesson. And grounding techniques, if you're teaching something in your classroom, it can be really good to talk to your parents about that, because then you have the common language. And if your student is struggling at home, the parent can say, at school, you talk about the turtle technique. Can we use that here? And try to make it so they're learning the skills, but then they're using them across different environments. So now we have some time for discussion. We realize mornings are busy. If you aren't able to stay, we have an exit ticket. We would really appreciate if you could fill that out, just because this is a new thing and we really want to get some good feedback so we can change it and morph it into what is most beneficial for you. And the Padlet is linked up there. We have a couple discussion questions, but let's just start open. If anyone has any burning questions they came with today, now is the time to ask. So I did not see any questions in the chat either. So we'd love to hear from your viewpoint in your district. What are some things that you've implemented that seem to be going really well? And what are some of the things that were more challenging that you are trying to do or have done, and how did you overcome some of those challenges?
I also just put a couple of things in the chat, just some things to think about. for discussion as well. If you guys have anything to add as far as just thinking about some of those reflection questions, questions that you have, things that you want to bring to the group as well.
Well, one, I love that you guys notice like, okay, we need to go back to our core, because we like we're saying among here, and I think it came from some other great guru, that like you can't intervene yourself out of a bad core. So if you're not taking care of this, you can't add all of this. So that's fantastic. I think that that's always the struggle is teachers. They worry about talking about emotions and things like that, because like everything you said. And I think I don't have a great answer for you, because I think that it just has to become a systematic thing. Your administrators need to say, this is the expectation, and this is, you know, how you follow that. And then putting in all of you and your other support staff of like, okay, if you really can't handle it, or you're not sure how to respond to a student, or it's outside of your wheelhouse, like we can get involved. But I think my thoughts are that these are all just life skills and things that students we want them to know how to do and to understand. And so you're not expecting teachers to be mental health professionals, but you're expecting teachers to just be able to have a conversation with kids about like, how's it going? And how do you take care of yourself and all of those things? Because if kids see that it's just normal and common and everybody is doing this, then it takes that stigma away of like, gosh, I'm having a really hard time today, or I'm feeling this and I need to take care of myself. So if it's just like, yeah, this is just what we do and this is what we talk about and this is how it goes, then I think everyone kind of comes along with that, like, oh yeah, all right, it's okay to feel this way and it's okay to need to take a break and stuff like that. So it's not a great answer because it's not an immediate fix, but those are my thoughts.
That's okay. And we talked about too the newness. When something is new, a lot of people feel overwhelmed and intimidated by the newness. So just telling teachers it's okay if you don't feel comfortable. So I am going into some classrooms and helping do like kind of a co-taught lesson. And I know some of the school counselors are too. So just didn't know if you had any other advice, but Emily, I had the same thoughts in terms of moving forward. So thanks for your feedback.
The only other thing that I would add in addition to that is just helping teachers understand that it shouldn't necessarily be something extra that they're doing. It's really just, I mean, SEBL is just good teaching. And I think for some teachers, they don't realize like, oh yeah, like I do that. It's really just about being intentional with a lot of those things. So even thinking about some of the resources and the activities that we shared today. So for example, like the goal setting one, that could be something as you're getting ready to do. So for the high school setting, maybe it's like a big essay that you're working on, but really talking about goal setting and prioritizing and planning and organizing and things like that as it's going along with the lesson, because that's part of that self-management. But it's already going along with what we're already teaching. We're just really being intentional with teaching those skills that go along with also doing that essay. Those mindfulness strategies that we shared, you know, we all have bad days. If a student is having a bad day, if the teacher's having, you know, just a rough morning, being able to really model and utilize some of those things so that we can share with those students, hey, like, I had just a rough morning. I woke up late. I spilled my coffee on the way out the door, you know, whatever it might be, but sharing with them what you're doing to try to make it a better day or to kind of try to get back on track or regulate those emotions or those feelings of, you know, just stress and being overwhelmed at that point in time.
And I think too with secondary, especially like older secondary, you could relate it to employability skills or skills that you need to be successful in college. And then they might be like, oh, well, like I want to go to college and I want to be successful when I go there. Or if I want to get a job and make money, I like linking it to like, how does this impact me not only in school? Like, what is this going to give me if I can participate and learn some of these skills effectively outside of school? And so if you're making those connections beyond the school walls, that can help create some buy-in as well. It looks like there's also some conversations happening in chat.
And I think that's a great point. I mean, obviously, we want to build those relationships, establish those classroom routines and expectations and things like that. And make it that safe place, make it that safe classroom where you can have those conversations and building on those relationships. Yeah, no problem. Holly, we can do some checking too with some of our other colleagues and see if they have any experience or any knowledge of that and get back to you as well.
Well, it's about 8:20, so I think it's time for our shameless plugs. We did include a self-management video. It does a good job of describing some of the skills and what it is. Very quick too. Our next Coffee Connect is on March 23rd. We're going to focus on relationship skills, I think. I can't remember. One of the other competencies that we haven't covered yet. Same time, same place, same link. This is our continuum that we do for our workshop trainings. So overview of SEBL, we talk about self-care, adult SEBL, and then really diving into that systematic implementation. What does it look like for the core level? And then what does that look like for those more intensive tiered supports? And so it's a 4.5-day training series. The half day there is in between the core and the tiered, where we just really want to go back and look at the core and make sure that we're doing some good foundational things before we build on top of it. And then our optimistic closure, we just would love to hear about what you learned today or one takeaway that you want to try moving forward.